Oh, baby, we here.
We shall try to steer.
Try to steer you in the right direction. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Grossi Perna Show. Tom Grossi, Brandon Perna. This is GPS. That was an exhale while I was doing the S.
That was just an exhale of stress. Today, the S stands for stress.
Yeah. No, it does. Folks, thanks for joining us here on Wednesday. Yeah, we're gonna try to navigate this and not to be like punny about GPS, but like that's really what we're gonna try to do here. Kind of talk about what's happened the past couple of days. Both Brandon and I, we put stuff out on our individual channels, kind of talked about it. But yeah, we're still kind of making our way through and trying to I guess just figure out what's next and like just how to, progress with anything because this is, it's unprecedented stuff.
No, it's a weird place when you're a show that is irreverent and like your tone is not serious and borderline stupid most of the time, where you kind of lean into being inappropriate and those sorts of things. And while also talking about football through all of that. But I think like today's kind of important in that for me, at least, it's like we're monitoring the health of Damar Hamlin, and it's just a situation where I don't think anyone's going to see any quick answers to his recovery. It's just going to take time. You're looking for incremental bits of news about him progressing. And that is, what we're seeing right now. There's a very cautious amount of optimism that so far the little pieces of news about Damar that we've received from Jordan Rooney, who's speaking on behalf of the family, have been positive. His oxygen, the amount of oxygen they're getting to help aid his breathing, has went from 100 to 50.
Yep.
Over last night, there were markers the doctors were looking for, and supposedly he's on the right track with those sort of things. And now, like in critical condition, it's just a waiting game. And I've been there with a friend, and it's a long process. And when you're in that position, all of those, as the family, all of those little pieces of news are huge to you, and you're just waiting for more and more progress. But it just takes time. And unlike normal, injuries, even when they're serious in the NFL, we usually, outside of that little window where maybe we don't know what happened, whether it's like we saw with Tua, really bad concussion. You get answers usually that evening. Like, it is a concussion.
Yep.
He's going to be okay. So this is a situation that's different than that, in that it happened Monday. It's Wednesday morning, and I don't think we're going to have clarity, today or tomorrow, or hopefully it's just more positive little strides he's making, and trusting that he's getting, the best medical care he can. And we figure out how to talk about the situation live, respectfully, keeping Damar in mind the whole time. And then also addressing the passing of Uche this week, which I learned about Monday evening as well.
Yep.
Like, I saw that on Twitter and then was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
And was like just processing that, and the game started, and then that happened. So it's just one of those weeks where you're trying to evaluate how you approach everything, and move through it in a way that I don't know, is respectful and makes sense, and all those things. So,
well, I mean, I think Monday night in of itself was just it was such a weird, like, emotional kind of up and down, because just speaking as a fan, like, Monday, like afternoon, I'm super excited. Like they announced that the Packers and Lions are gonna be Sunday Night Football. Like that's a game
Right.
I wanted. Like it's gonna be the last primetime game of the regular season. Like I'm really excited. Like I'm doing giveaways for tickets. Like really excited. Then the news of Uche comes out, and I'm like just blindsided by that, and saying, okay, like that. Talking to clickbait guys and saying, let's try to get Uche's channel to 100K so he can get the plaque for his family. So the link is in the chat still. I'm sorry, in the description. So go check that out. Last time I checked, 49,000 subscribers. So that's pretty great. Appreciate you doing all that. So then there was that, and then on top of that, Monday, like Monday evening, and a game that like everybody was looking forward to. I mean,
Right.
we were hyping it up on PS. I was incredibly excited to finally stream a good primetime game, and we were ready to go. And then, yeah, it took. There's 6 minutes left in the first quarter, and at first, like I didn't even see it. It was just like, oh, there's another injury timeout. Kind of just like waiting to see. They showed the highlights. I was able to then see it immediately. There's like a completely different tone, and then it, like you said, it was just waiting, in which whether it was CPR, whether it was the ambulance, and it was like, okay, is this game going to get canceled? How can this game continue? All of these questions are swirling, and then waiting for the updates from the hospital that didn't really come that evening. And it was just a waiting game. And I don't know, like it was just trying to organize tens of thousands of people and try to figure out what's going on collectively, but having absolutely no answers. And I think that that's what people struggle with too, is like you said, you usually get like those quick, like instant gratification. Oh, okay, it's this injury, it's this injury. But this, like, we had no idea. And we're just like waiting in the dark.
No, it's an injury I don't ever recall seeing, during an NFL game. And I think that the closest one recently was the Ryan Shazier injury a couple of years ago, where you knew it was pretty serious, and it brought up questions like, should the teams even keep playing in this game? How do you play after an injury like that? And even, with Ryan Shazier's injury, it's a spinal injury, and we have seen that in NFL games before. We've seen the really worst case scenarios from those injuries where players become, paralyzed afterwards. And it's always hard to watch. And it's like, we we just take for granted how violent the game is still. And you see so much football game after game after game, hit after hit after hit, and you get a little bit desensitized to what's being risked, every time these guys go out there for our entertainment. Like,
Correct.
They're playing a game, and we're all watching because it's fun to watch. And, I've seen like people bring up the fact that, people die like every day. Like, why are you being so serious or dramatic about this?
Sure.
So I mean, we live on a planet with 9 billion people on it. Of course, people are going to die every day. And it's when somebody's life hangs in the balance on a collective experience where we're all watching it together, and it's the result of men playing a game that we like watching. It's different, and it's that like, because people die every day doesn't mean we shouldn't be respectful about what happened. Like, it's not a good argument or reason to not talk about these situations with dignity and respect for family members that are involved. And like, it doesn't mean you shouldn't be that way if you're in any situation in your life where you're dealing with something like that, or if it is a family member, somebody, that it's just a different situation.
I think it's also like you saw kind of like the best and worst come out of like humanity.
Yeah, sure.
Because like, listen, like there's a valid point to what people are saying, but at the same time, like I think people who love the sport and the space, like maybe it's just I've never seen anything like that
No.
ever. And in terms of like on the football field, what have you, like Tua's injury, you talk about Shazier, right? But Tua, like that injury earlier, or I guess that was last year now in 2022, like when he got the significant concussion, and there was like, is he gonna continue? Like, are these teams gonna play right now? Because that was very, very scary, right? We didn't know what was going on with him. And I was like, okay. And then there was this, and it just all of the questions, all like it just sucked everything out of the room.
Yeah.
And like I think, and I was like talking to a buddy about this yesterday. I've never seen football stop. Right?
Yeah.
Football has been the constant. There's injuries every single week. Like there's things where they stop, and then there's more significant injuries another. But I've never seen football stop. And they literally like sent him into the locker room. And I know there's stuff about that too, but sent him into the locker room and the game was done. And I had never seen that before. And throughout everything that has happened, right? National tragedies, disasters, all of these things like injuries, football just continued to just be consistent and constant. And it wasn't, on Monday. And I think like that in a primetime game in where so many eyes were on it.
Yeah.
I mean, like we legit watched a guy's heart stop on live TV. Yeah. And like that's a lot. Like that's a lot. So it's kind of just trying to navigate through this now because I think you mentioned this in your video yesterday, right? And this was being mentioned in the chat with soccer, right? You had the athlete, was that a couple years ago, right? Who I think his heart stopped in the field. And like I know because that got a lot of coverage. Yeah. Because like the cameras were like trying to like zoom in on him and stuff. And like that kind of stuff hadn't hit our sport like in this day and age.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people were like, hey, we don't know what to do here. And you can see the NFL doesn't either, because there's not really the protocol for this. I mean, like, we'll get to this stuff, but in terms of like rescheduling the game, they're not doing it this week, right? Which makes a lot of sense because I think everyone's kind of just playing the waiting game. And there's the last week of the season that's coming up. And the NFL's like, well, right now there's no changes, but I don't know what they do because that's not the most important thing right now.
Yeah.
And it's because we're all kind of just waiting to hear. But as you said in the beginning of the show, like it may be a very long time, like before we start to hear like real progress. We're getting these little tidbits of information and they're like trending positive, but he's still critical in the ICU. So it's just trying to figure it out.
I mean, that would be like the first, big sign of optimism would be, moving out of ICU, right? And there's just no telling when that can happen. And I saw somewhere, somebody was talking about it was either a cardiologist or someone had talked with a cardiologist, and kind of the thought was, in a situation like this, kind of no news is usually like a good news sort of situation, as like somebody recovers from this type of cardiac arrest, which we still don't know like everything about it. And I've seen a lot of things about how this does happen in sports when it's a sudden and violent blow to the chest, that it can cause cardiac arrest. And even though that they know that can happen, it's like a very tough thing to actually still like diagnose. So it's we wait and you hope for the best, and I think everybody is. And I think it's brought NFL players together. It's brought a lot of sports media figures together. It's brought fans together. And I mean, just looking at like his charity that's raised $6.2 million now, and that's fans, players, people just donating to Damar's toy drive. That's just like one of the things that for me restores a little bit of faith in that most people will respond appropriately when things are bad and down, and that people will be there for each other. That the fact that Bills and Bengals fans are still going to the hospital to pray outside of the
Yeah.
hospital for him. Like, people don't have to do that stuff, but they're making an effort to show their support for Damar's family. Like, it's a little thing you can do, and I think it means a lot to people when they're going through something like that, to know that so many people are thinking about them and have their back. And yeah, not everybody has that opportunity when they are going through something really tough, especially like a medical thing, but shouldn't take away from how the communities come together. And it's also like reiterated, like the NFL community as a whole, to me, like that it's actually pretty good. And I think the communities that we've built here too, like there's always people that come in, you're just like, ignore, what's being said, but the people showing up that are supportive and that are positive, and all of that is incredibly meaningful.
Yeah.
And
Well,
and there's going to be people who don't say the right things, who don't do the right things, and we're seeing the backlash happen for those people right now. It's a weird situation, though.
Yeah, and that's kind of like you said, like the best of humanity, because that link, when the mod, shout out to the mods for getting that in front of me. Well, I put it out, it was like $12,000, and now it's over $6 million.
Yeah,
Like it's crazy. By the time I woke up on Tuesday, it was over
it was like
1 million.
3.5 million overnight, and I mean that's crazy. His
Yeah,
I also read his jersey is the #1 selling jersey in any sport.
all sports. Yep, and all the proceeds for that are going to his charity too.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
and it had been confirmed too by the family and the rep that this is the only actual charity out there, because you did have people that
yeah,
were being scummy and trying to take advantage of the situation in a multitude of ways. But yeah, I mean, like, this shows like the good. And I
yeah,
think that, like you said, overwhelming, there was a lot of positivity, and you saw a lot of, like, the teams came together. Like, I know it's something small, but it's like, changing all their profile pictures on Twitter, and kind of just showing like that
yeah,
solidarity. Um, I think like I think everyone's on the same page. And I got to be very honest with you, like, I would not want to be an NFL exec trying to figure out
no,
what the hell you do here, because the number one priority is Damar Hamlin's health.
yep,
And you have like a very real chance of not knowing what those like updates are going to be, and like still attempting to move forward. And I mean, like, they're going to be stumbling and bumbling. And I think you might have mentioned this too yesterday, because I mentioned this on stream. Like, we complain about the NFL
oh
all
yeah,
the time, right? The refs are terrible,
yeah,
right? It's just like the lack of consistency. They are more reactive than proactive, and all of these things. And I know that they're under a ton of scrutiny, because on the live broadcast they basically said like, oh, they're just going to give each team 5 minutes and they're just going to come back out and play. Then you have Roger Goodell saying that never happened, and then like he helped make the decision. And I don't know if we're ever going to know what the truth of that situation is. But I think more importantly is like, now it doesn't matter. It's
no,
like none of it does. So it's kind of just trying to figure out, okay, we're supposed to go and like figure out how to move forward with our biggest month ever of football, right? Because
yeah,
it's the amount of like the hype behind it, and viewership grows every single year. But also saying like, we don't know what we're doing, because they don't. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's
yeah.
just they don't know right now.
And I think, like, ultimately, what happened was they got Damar immediate medical attention.
Yes.
They got him to the hospital, I think, as quickly as they could. And that's all that mattered in that situation. And if it took a little bit before them figuring out what to do with the game, like, that's fine. They ultimately made the right call. They didn't play the game, and they got Damar the
Correct.
medical attention he needed. And outside of that, we're kind of just like, we're looking for something to be upset about. And this is, it's not the right things to look at, to criticize
Correct.
in the moment. And how they proceed here, like what they figure out how to go forward with it. We can all talk about that as it happens, and we'll
So
see. But I think ultimately, like, they did a good job at doing the right thing. Even like at the time, it felt like an eternity. Like,
yeah,
what are you doing? You know what I mean? It felt really, really long because there's just this whole air of uncertainty about what happened to Damar in the moment. We didn't know. And like when you're scared in the moment like that, it feels like nothing's happening, you know?
yeah,
But
yeah.
um,
I mean, dude, like, talking about, I'm not even going to name names, but certain commentators and sports talking heads or whatever, you know, not really saying some great things on Monday, 100% got me. And I never respond to this person ever because I do not care about their existence. Like, I
right.
just don't. I don't pay attention. Their hot takes, whatever. Oh, but it got me on Monday. I fell for the bait. I did. I fell for the bait. But, I think like in the morning, I just deleted a bunch of it because I was just like, the only thing that should be up there right now is like the fundraiser. That's it. Because at the end of the
Yeah.
day, like that's the only thing that's really important. Like I can complain like about, and there was both of that. Like I wasn't listening, but then I went back and listened to some of the stuff, like the way that ESPN was covering it, like the way they were talking about it, I think was well done. I had it on mute and was just seeing the images, and I just didn't like them constantly showing players like crying on the sideline and what have you. But like you said, it's nitpicking things to be wrong with. It's in the
Yeah.
moment, and they're trying to improv just like I'm trying to improv on a much, much bigger scale. So yeah, we're just trying to work our way through it. And I know that this is like recently started to come about too, is with like T Higgins, because T Higgins is the person who got tackled
Yeah.
and by Damar Hamlin. And I cannot imagine kind of what is going through his headspace. I saw now that he's getting threats and all that stuff. Like that's garbage stuff. Like
Yeah.
that's trash. And again, it's not the majority of people, but as you and I are both people on the internet, it really doesn't take much, even if it's just 1% of people, it's not
Yeah.
okay.
No, like, yeah. I mean, Will and I have talked about this where you could receive 1,000 positive
Yep.
messages, and it's the one ultra negative one that sticks out and affects you. And in a situation like this, based on what had happened, like the fact that T Higgins would be getting any sort of criticism or blowback, and you had Bart Scott
Yep.
talking about it on ESPN, it's just all of that's incredibly unfortunate. And it's like people in when things like this happen, it's kind of in human nature to like try and figure out why it happened
And
and
blame.
then
Yeah.
put blame in an area. Uh, it just doesn't need to happen here. It's like when I saw that hit happen, my before, like, because the hit happened and they cut away from the hit, you didn't know that Damar went down.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this is going to be a really good physical football game. Like, I was like, these guys came out to play today. That's what I was thinking when I was watching it. I was like, that was a hard hit. These are two teams that, are going to put it all on the line to try and win this game because it's important. And that, like, optimism about how physical football is just did a 180 immediately when you saw him go down. And I was like, oh, that might be a concussion. And then you saw the play, you saw him collapse, and then you saw the way players were reacting. And I thought by seeing the players' reaction is what let me know how serious what was going on. So, it's it was a lot to take in and try and process and figure out.
Yeah.
So the fact that there were, there are guys having to do that live, and you were live when it happened, and I'm glad I wasn't, because I'm not articulate enough to like navigate through situations like that. And there were a lot of people that I thought handled it well, and it's unfortunate that guys like T Higgins taking some heat from it. But I think, like, if you look, majority of the people are out there supporting him and offering support.
Of
And
course.
the NFL's, come out and said, like, the teams are going to get any sort of counseling support that they need to, as this, they go through this. And that's like another thing that is really hard to factor in, is all of the guys who witnessed this happen, how that affects them on a, emotional level. And there's a lot to try and figure out, from the games to how the players are handling it to all of that stuff. But
so I don't know, bud. It's like,
no, I don't either.
it was something that I was like, hey, because like, right, you could make the argument like, okay, maybe the NFL just takes a break, right? Like they take a break until they figure out something. They push the playoffs back a week, figure it out that way. Because at the end of the day, right, the Bills are still scheduled to play a game on Sunday. And we should have more information, but to what extent, I don't know. And I don't think anybody knows. So can you expect, because they're not doing it this week. So the NFL announced that they are not going to be scheduling the game this week. They don't have plans of rescheduling it right now. So like, I don't know if they give them both a tie. I don't know if they both pretend the game doesn't matter, because like there are real questions, while keeping Damar Hamlin in thoughts, saying, okay, well, like, where do you go from here when there's so much uncertainty? And I gotta be honest, buddy, like, I have no idea. I mean, because you have TV contracts. I don't think they could just push things back. It's not just like, oh, willy-nilly.
There's TV contracts. There's fans who have made travel plans for games. It's like, I don't think the seeding, obviously it doesn't matter at this point for the AFC. We know the Bills and the Bengals, they're two playoff teams. They don't need to play this game. And I think all the other teams and players around the league will understand, like, if the seeding shakes out a little bit differently because of this, I don't think anybody's going to have a problem with it. And it's not important. And I think it seems like a tough thing to figure out, but just scrapping the game and looking at, these are both two very good football teams. They're both going to be in the playoffs. One's here instead of there. Like, everybody will move on and I think be okay with it. So,
it's funny because like we're so insulated in our like football world, right? And like standings are so incredibly important and records are so important and like it means so much. And then like this happens and it's like, like not so much.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. Like I just, again, the protocol for this is just there isn't one that's established. So now we kind of just wait and see. And like I said, the NFL, like they put the thing out yesterday that they're not planning on, rescheduling week 18 games. That could change, but right now, I mean, thankfully there's no Thursday night football or anything like this. But yeah, buddy, I don't know. I got no idea.
You go one day at a time, and they'll make decisions. There's nothing we can control. You know what I mean? In terms of what they do. And teams are going to play this weekend. They're going to start and try to prepare for the games this weekend. And everybody, I think, will be thinking about Damar and hoping for the best. And, it's, the stuff goes on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Did you hop on the dumpster fire last night?
I didn't get a chance to, no.
Yeah, neither did I.
I went donated to the charity, but I wasn't able to make it on.
No. And that's like the other thing, like we're in a week where, Uche passes away suddenly, also heart related. And Like I'm just thinking about like Adam and Tree and how they're going to process this week, because they did a show together for, the last like 2 years. And wanting to be there for those guys, and knowing that they cared about him, and that they're trying to honor him, and the link to Uche's channel, is in either of these streams, and it's, getting him to 100,000 subscribers is kind of the goal there. And that's just like a symbolic thing I think they're trying to do to show his family that they cared about him and appreciated him joining them on the show every week. And like, I didn't know Uche. I talked to him a couple times on these platforms, but I always thought he was so candid and hilarious, and it was refreshing to hear a guy who played in the NFL just talk so much shit about it, like without care. Like, still love the game, all that stuff, but he would say what was ever on his mind. And anytime I'd see him on the dumpster fire, I always thought like, man, I hope I get more chances to talk with him about football. And like, now obviously, I don't, but it was a fun dynamic that he brought to their show. And it's it's sad, but I respect how both Tree and Five, are have handled it, and honored their friend in this situation. So
yeah, I mean, the experiences I've had with them were all positive, whether it was on the dumpster fire. I had him on the charity stream, the first one, so back in 2021, and we got to talk for like half an hour. And yeah, just like a very welcoming guy, like shared his experience and knowledge with you, and was kind of just transitioning into like the next phase of his career. And yeah, no, that was, and I think that like Monday was tough because of Uche. It was made worse by Monday night.
Yep.
And I know like a bunch of people are just like, oh, it's a millionaire playing on a field. You don't know who this person is. Like, you've never met them. And I said, like, straight up on stream, like, Damar Hamlin, like, I was not familiar with him. I streamed a bunch of Bills games, but I was not familiar with the player. Like, wasn't someone I was really connected to. I think it was just Uche combined with that was, and literally just watching the whole game stop, seeing what we did on national television. I don't know, like it hurt a lot more than I anticipated. Especially like after I got off the stream, because I feel like that was trying to just manage, like go into teacher mode, just like manage and be like, okay, like we're going to wait on here because it's still streamed for like 3 hours. Like, let's get that fundraiser out there. Let's donate to the fundraiser 100%. Like, and again, like this is just stuff that we can do in the meantime while we try to wait for news, because there's so much energy and feelings and emotion that you want to be able to channel that in some way. Yeah. And so I think like that's what you see a lot of that charity for. And people are like, oh, why are you helping a millionaire? And I'm like, well, it's for kids. It's literally for children getting toys. Like, I want to be very clear there. It's not like medical bill. It's not that. It's literally helping children for a GoFundMe that he started now 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Like it's literally helping the community.
And I think like with the amount of attention and funding that charity's receiving, obviously this is a guess, but I'm assuming they're going to find a lot of ways to put that money to good use. And, it's anytime somebody's doing something for other people like that, I don't know how you knock it. It's also like to speak to the emotional level that it kind of hit. We don't know Damar Hamlin. All I knew is that he was filling in for Micah Hyde and that he was playing well for Buffalo. But it doesn't mean you can't have compassion or be emotionally affected by something. Sure. And it's you're knowing what his family's going through, and it's understanding like seeing what all his teammates are going through. And if you're like Tom and I, and you watch all these guys every single week, you hear them talk. Sure, they're on TV and there's a wall between you, but it doesn't mean you don't make connections with all of these people that you talk about in these players. And last year when Demaryius Thomas passed away, I had no idea that was going to affect me the way it did. And that was sudden. And we did a show the next day and I couldn't keep it together emotionally when we started the show. And I didn't know Demaryius Thomas. I didn't meet him, but I watched him play. I cared about him. I knew the way other people thought about him. And I don't think you need to try and explain when something does affect you emotionally. I think it's a reminder that you're human and that you care about things and you care about people. And I think it's better, like if you can have if that can affect you and you didn't know somebody, I think that's a good thing, because you're displaying a level of emotion and compassion that I think is healthy.
Sure. And I mean, like, it's a fine line, right? Because you're not looking for like sympathy, pity, like it's be like, oh, here's how this situation impacted me.
No, it's
right?
Like, it shouldn't be about you for sure.
And like that's not what it is at all. Like not even a little bit. It's just like real talk of like, I didn't know how to handle the situation, did the very best that I could with the platform that I had, trying to manage 29,000 people, and then trying to figure out, while this is this is my whole job, it's your whole job to talk and make jokes about football. And yesterday and Monday night, I couldn't make any jokes or anything about football because I didn't want to, and it was wholly inappropriate. And like now it's trying to get through the rest of this.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I was talking to Brandon about power rankings, right? Because Wednesday is usually when we do power rankings.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't do power rankings. Like, I don't know, right? Like, let's not even just like not the right headspace, what have you, which is all true. But also, okay, you have two teams, as you mentioned, they're playoff teams, what have you. What do I do with that? Like logistically, and it's just, yeah, it's crazy. It's tough. And again, none of this matters. I want to be very, very clear. None of this matters. But this is like stuff that we're kind of just.
No, I mean, it doesn't matter in relation to what's happening, to Damar and his family, but like you and I trying to figure out how we proceed through the week with our work, like that matters to us. It's our job. It's how we, support ourselves. And, it's okay to not know exactly what to do, and, to just make a decision and move forward with it, and try your best. And it is weird when your videos are things that make jokes, like you say, like, I say stupid shit in my videos every every single time. Like, I can't go through a video and be like, oh, just be professional.
Yeah, sure.
Keep it like, I can't do it. So that's like a tone you don't want to say something like that and it be misconstrued or insensitive. And it's all right to not know what you want to do this week. And we'll figure it out. Like, just try your best.
That's all we can do, my dude. That's all we can do. So, I mean, again, links are in the description for Uche to try and get his channel to 100K so his family can get the 100K plaque. And yeah, so thank you. Appreciate you. We're just, we're trying to figure it out. Like I'm going to put out content today. It's going to be weird. Like I have every NFL fan's reaction and I'm just like, ugh. So, I mean, I'm going to make some changes to that, and put that out, and I think it's just, Like I might stumble around a little bit, might take a while, things are gonna be different, but we're all just gonna kind of get on by.
Yeah. What I found like was bizarre. Like for me on Twitter, right? Like you and I, we follow a ton of football related accounts, right? Like when I open Twitter, it's 90% football. It's not even like a social media site to me. It's just a football site.
Yeah.
But I do follow other things.
Yeah.
So like when this was happening, it's all about the Bills game and the Bills, Bengals, Damar, like it's all of this. And then there's just like a tweet where somebody who is not following football is just completely about something else.
Yeah. They're just like, went to the supermarket today. And I was just like, how? How'd you go?
This. And then it's like, I'm trying to think of what I saw. It like made me laugh because it was like just somebody shitting on like a movie or TV show for this.
Yeah.
You're like, it was refreshing because it pulled you back out of like just feeling like horrible to be like, oh yeah, there's tons of people
we're such
not
in that
paying
bubble
attention to football. But yeah, because it felt like the entire world is just this thing.
But everyone's like going on with their day and just being like, oh, I heard about it, because it made like national news and all that stuff. But yeah, no, it 100%, because I saw the same things, and it was just like, yeah, you know what? This movie that I saw the menu. This is okay, and I was just like, oh yeah, there is a world outside of it, because I think also like it is like the busy season. It's the playoffs. Like it's so you're so tuned in that it seems like this is the only thing that exists right now.
Yeah. And even just like people covering other sports, like seeing like Avalanche tweets that night or other things. It's there's a lot of things that go on. And it's so funny. It's like this week I thought like the main thing I'm going to be caring about is learning about what the Broncos are thinking about doing for, their head coaching vacancy now. It's like I haven't even thought about that until, this morning a little bit, where it's like, oh yeah, we do. My team does got to find a head coach, and we have big names linked to the coaching vacancy now, and you get back into it, and it's kind of like everybody's got to figure out how to ease back into it, because there's not going to be that quick answer here. And I think like for me, I look at, shows and other people in the space that I respect, and kind of learning from how they proceed through the rest of the week, and take their lead on some of those things.
Yeah. Like we're all, I was curious to see like how the NFL handled some of the stuff too, because they're trying to figure it out too. And for all their flaws, and there are plenty of them, I'm curious, because I think a lot of people are also looking to them, because they're saying like, okay, like what do we do? Like this is your thing, right? And it's one of your players. How do you respond? And I will say, because again, I don't know. I have no idea about whether that was true of like they just gave him 5 minutes and then both coaches said like nay. I don't know which part they said on the TV broadcast and it was said afterwards. I don't know if it's just PR or covering, what have you. Honestly, at this point, it really doesn't matter. But I will say the NFL, the aftermath, how they've handled it by saying it's about the player. We don't know about the schedule. It's not happening this week. That's it. Like that was the message that they put out. And I was like, I appreciate that. I think they handled that aspect well.
No, it's like, when we're talking about football, right? And at least I do. I like to have some bad guys, right? And the bad guys, the NFL, it's too big, it's too powerful. For me, also Tom Brady, a bad guy I like to have. Because when I'm making videos and talking about things, if I can have that, for me, it's more fun to talk about it that way. And the NFL has become an easy bad guy because there are a lot of things to criticize.
Absolutely.
And the thing I brought up yesterday is like the next time they're arguing for guaranteed contracts for players, like just keep that in mind. But it doesn't mean that it's always evil. They're like that they're ever evil, but we kind of just get locked into that. It's like, oh yeah, the NFL's a bad guy. But for the most part, there's a lot of good that comes out of it every year. Tom Brady is not an evil force set out on earth to ruin my life. I realize that, but it doesn't mean I can't acknowledge when Tom does something
Sure.
well or nice or whatever. And it's the same for the NFL. And it's okay to be like, they, for the most part, handled this correctly. And so far this week they have, and we'll see if they continue to do so.
I mean, it just speaking on my thoughts real quick about what they do at the game. I don't think it's ever getting played. I think it's done because I think if it's not going to happen this week, which makes all the sense in the world, right? If they got that immediate, like he's in the hospital, okay, stable condition on like Monday night, maybe they could have made it like maybe Wednesday or Thursday night football, maybe. But now I think they're just going to be like, I don't think they'll do it a tie. Like, I think they'll just play like it doesn't count. Like you're going to play one less game. We'll go off percentages and just kind of, keep it rocking. Because I think that's all they can do because the turnaround is too quick.
Don't worry, guys. I see it in the comments, all of the things Tom Brady does do wrong, and I will never forget those things. I will never forget.
You're like, listen, it's weird right now, but I'll never stop.
Yeah.
I did see McAfee starting a war with Detroit.
I saw the clip. I saw him apologize later.
Yeah.
What can you do?
Yeah. It's whatever. So, yeah, I mean, we'll talk about like football on Friday and kind of just like, we'll see where we're in, like what kind of, what updates we have. I implore you again, the link to the charity for Damar Hamlin, what he set up a couple of years ago while he was in college, that benefits. And they said they're going to find a very good place for it too. So they raised over $6 million. Do that. And then Uche, again, a fellow sports creator, unfortunately passed away that we learned of on Monday. We're trying to get his family the 100K plaque. So if you could subscribe, that'd be great. Just, it just helps. So it's little things. It's not going to make the world better. Like, overnight, it's not going to make a huge difference in the world, but for those people, it might. So,
and it's like, you can go sub to Uche's channel. That's easy. That's free. If you're not in a position, to donate there, or if you want to donate to a cause that's important to you,
absolutely.
It's just a good time to kind of remember, if you have the ability to do something positive, do it. Stop putting it off. And when Tree and Five were doing the stream last night, I saw it when I was eating dinner, and then had to do bath time with my daughter. That's I do that. So I was like, okay, once I get through all of that, I'm going to try to hop on and talk with those guys and show them, some support. But it was a night where Carmen and I, she just wanted to play with me, and we were having fun. And I was like, I don't want to pull away from spending time with her right in this moment. And I thought this is actually a good reminder of just be there, be present, and be a dad, and don't pull yourself away from the fam right now, because I've done that so much this season, and I didn't want to be in that headspace and then try and jump on and do that with Five and Tree. But my point is, I think the sudden passing of someone like Uche, it's you don't know how much time you have, and in that moment, to me, it was more important to just keep chilling with Carmi and keep laughing and playing our silly games and running around the house, and use things like this as just the mental reminder to check what's important to you and what's going on in your life. We don't obviously we talk about football, so we don't talk about that shit very often, but it's not one of those things where you say it one time, you're like, yeah, I'm gonna be better dad or spend more time with me. You got to constantly remind yourself to, hey, be present, do this day right, do this week right, and like an athlete, always working to get a little bit better at the things you do. And that's kind of what I've tried to take away from this week is like, how can I be better for my family? How can I be better with work? How can I do all of this shit moving forward a little bit better? Because when you see these things, it's just a reminder, a refresher that, yeah, didn't really know Uche that well. I don't know Damar Hamlin, but it doesn't mean I can't learn something from the situation and hopefully be a little bit better because of it. So I think that's how we move forward this week and figure it out. And, hopefully we have better news by Friday. And we can talk about our stupid power rankings on Friday. You can make fun of how dumb mine are and everybody can laugh at us. Laugh at me for being so much dumber than you like they do every week. Oh, how can Tom put up with Brandon's power rankings every week? I can actually see Tom starting to lose it when he looks at Brandon's power rankings.
It's true.
Tom is so much better than Brandon. Why do you do this show with him?
Because I don't think I am. It's just someone mentioned about T Higgins charity. So someone mentioned he did like the cleats, like they do the cause for the cleats thing. Mm-hmm. You could look up and see kind of like what that one was. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, to be honest. I don't know, Will. I excuse me, Whiskey. I think that there's going to be players that are going to handle this, in different ways, just because they're all people, and it's just going to, I'm sure there's lots of, Aaron Rodgers talked about that on McAfee yesterday. It kind of puts it in perspective, like the game you play, and how much time you have and your future. And they were talking about that last week with Tua, right? And talking about after it was found out that he had a concussion, you start looking ahead. I think we've seen a couple of instances of how violent the game that we love is. Yeah. I was talking to a friend about this yesterday. I remember growing up there. It is AAXE, ALS. So, yeah, if you want to support, T Higgins' cause, so that's what I was thinking. Maybe that would be a good thing too. But I lost my train of thought. I forgot where I was. I was thinking about charity now. No, it's not your fault. I don't remember where I was.
Everybody reacts different. Like,
oh, that's what I'm about. Yeah, with like Tua and like things. I think we've gotten a lot of instances of, like looking past the game of like, serious injury. I think Tua's situation like really put kind of a marker on that and going like, all right, because it was looking at the Dolphins, it was looking at the NFL, like they're changing protocols now. And, now you have this situation with Damar Hamlin, which is, incredibly serious. And it's just constant reminders. So.
I think it's also important to keep in mind, like, this is the first time we've seen this, right? Like, yes. I don't expect this to be something you see frequently. The NFL's, maybe it's happened, I don't know, sometime back in like the 50s or 60s or something, not to my recollection. And you can't, like, football will never be a safe sport. Like, you can do things to make it safer. This specific incident is kind of an outlier, and the other reminder is just to never like downplay an injury, never take it for granted, never pretend like what players are playing through, how they're holding up. And I think like what was odd was on Monday we were kind of talking about Kayvon Thibodeau and what he was doing while Nick Foles was in pain next to him. And we kind of gave him the benefit of the doubt. Like in that moment, maybe he doesn't know like that Foles is in pain there. But I think like, seeing that and then this happening later, it's like you never know the extent of a player's injury while it's happened. And we have this kind of bad habit of playing like armchair doctor. Like, oh, that's probably an ACL. Yeah. That's a concussion. Like we don't know. And the best move is just to, hope they're all right and not try and diagnose it and not try and downplay it until you actually know what the situation is?
Yeah, because you had a yes,
Okay,
that's the
71.
Chuck
Okay.
Hughes. Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, I mean, like that was a lot of the chat. It was like, oh well, look at like this YouTube doctor like put this video on and stuff like that. And I said, I'm not belittling that. I'm not saying they're wrong. I would just rather hear the updates from the professionals that are actually like in his care, like and that's it. So, yeah, that's it. That's it.
Oh, yeah, I see that. That's something I do need to do. I do need to do that.
I'll never forget going to a CPR certification class. Gotta watch out for the xiphoid processor. That was the number one thing I remember because they scared the crap out of us when you're doing CPR. And they're like, also, you'll probably break people's ribs when you do it.
Yeah. Anytime I think about CPR, the first thing I think of is the scene from The Office when they do the in-office CPR. It's like one of the greatest. It's one of the funniest television scenes you'll ever see.
Is.
But
yeah,
that is a good reminder. That's something I need to do.
Brandon, what do you got today, bud?
Well, Will and I believe we'll podcast later on That's Good Broncos and writing power rankings, and I think I'll have that up today. If not, I'll wait and do it tomorrow, but we'll see.
Yeah.
You, Tom, what's your?
I don't know if I'm doing power rankings this week, to be completely honest with you. I don't know. I just don't know. I am going to do, because I had every NFL fans ready. I'm going to make some changes and do some reshoots. And I think I'm going to put that out today. And then South, I don't know. Like it'll probably come out today or tomorrow. Same thing with like predictions. So I just got to kind of figure it out and just going to see what feels right.
Yeah. We're almost through the regular season. We got one week left.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right, buddy. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you, Tom. You take care of yourself. Appreciate everybody here. Not just showing up to watch, but being positive towards each other. Obviously, I know that's not everyone, but and I know shows like this, things can get a little weird in the chats. But everybody's been respectful to each other, treating each other with dignity and love and respect. All of you guys are awesome. You guys are the reason we keep coming back to do this. And don't think we don't notice that. It's the driving force behind like the show, your positivity, the community. And if you got a chance to be there for somebody, to be that, I don't know, that the support that they need, do it. If you need the support, you need something from somebody, from your family, from your friends, whoever, take the time to reach out. And life is valuable, and there's a lot of uncertainty, but we love all you. Love you, Tom.
Love you, buddy.
And I still don't love Tom Brady, but at least I respect him a little bit today. Tomorrow he will be my villain again, though.
Yeah, that's the best we're gonna get. Honestly, like that's it.
That's a big step for me, Tom.
Honestly, I'm proud of you, bud.
Thanks.
Tom Grossi, Perna, GPS. You've been navigated, I think.